Hello, hello. Sorry, I made the mistake of not putting bookmarks on the pages yet again. Let's see. Yes. Okay, I hope I can be heard. Okay, it looks like it's registering the audio. Sweet. What do I... Okay, I don't have to edit that. Sorry. This is only my second time doing this, y'all, so forgive me for being kind of a dunce about it. Let's see. Yeah, that's what it's going to be. All right, let's get situated. Get ready to rock and roll. Hope everybody is well. I hope everybody had a great Thanksgiving. I don't know. At least a relatively peaceful one anyway, right? Oh, shoot. I really hope I didn't screw up the chat feature like I did last week. Let me see something. No, it should be okay. I don't know. I went into tonight kind of unsure as to whether I wanted to read one of these things versus the other, but I sat here, I stared at them. I elected not to already revisit one of the things I touched upon last week, that being Pure Hollywood by Christine Scott. I was thinking, giving some very serious consideration to reading the title story in that collection because it's a little bit longer. Would be fun to read aloud, and it's kind of like a pretty significant departure stylistically for Scott. Maybe not stylistically so much, but definitely plot-wise. It's aptly named. It has like sudden... I don't want to spoil anything, but it's like conventionally compelling, you know? So that's kind of unusual for Christine Scott. But instead, what I decided to do was go on to another author that I wanted to squeeze in last week, but didn't quite have the time. So tonight, I'm going to go with a few stories from Taking Care by Joy Williams. This was her first story collection, originally published... Shoot, I don't know when this was published. I know a lot of the stories were originally published in the 70s, but I'm not entirely sure when it was collected. Maybe the early 80s. I don't know. All I know is they're tremendous stories. So. Very strange. Funny. I don't know. Yeah. Sorry if you're just joining. I'm going to be reading some from Taking Care by Joy Williams. It's a collection of short stories. Yeah, I don't know. Just some of my favorites ever. I love Joy Williams, but I have yet to read any of her novels. I've exclusively read her short fiction so far, and not even all of it, but a good amount of it. Taking Care, a later collection called Honored Guest, another collection called Escapes, another one called The Visiting Privilege. I've read all those, and most of them multiple times. But yeah, I don't know. I'm just rambling to ramble. This is all just to say Joy Williams is awesome, and if you've never taken a look at her, or you only know her from her novels, give her short fiction a look. It's pretty exceptional, and she is an odd one for sure. And you know what? I decided I'm going to put these in the chat if anybody wants to make note of these while this is happening. But this first one is called Lover. Joy Williams. And, all right. Just if anybody bumbles in while I'm in the middle of reading it, y'all at least can orient yourselves to some degree. But yeah, once again, The Lover by Joy Williams. The girl is 25. It has not been very long since her divorce, but she cannot remember the man who used to be her husband. He was probably nice. She will tell the child this, at any rate. Once he lost a $50 pair of sunglasses while surf casting off Gay Head and felt badly about it for days. He did like kidneys, that was one thing. He loved kidneys for weekend lunch. She would voyage through the supermarkets, her stomach sweetly sloped, her hair in a twist, searching for fresh kidneys for this young man, her husband. When he kissed her, his kisses, or so she imagined, would have the faint odor of urine. Understandably, she did not want to think about this. It hardly seemed that the same problem would arise again, that is, with another man. Nothing could possibly be gained from such an experience. The child cannot remember him, this man, this daddy, and she cannot remember him. She had been with her when she gave birth to the child, not beside her, but close by in the corridor. He had left his work and come to the hospital. As they wheeled her by, he said, "Now, you are going to have to learn how to love something, you wicked woman." It is difficult for her to believe he said such a thing. The girl does not sleep well and recently has acquired the habit of listening all night to the radio. It is an old, not very good radio, and at night she can only get one station. From midnight until 4, she listens to Action Line. People call the station and make comments on the world and their community, and they ask questions. Music is played, and a brand of beef and beans is advertised. A woman calls up and says, "Could you tell me why the filling in my lemon meringue pie is runny?" They want to know where they can purchase. Oh, I'm sorry. These people have obscene materials in their mailboxes. They want to know where they can purchase small flags suitable for waving on Armed Forces Day. There is a man on the air who answers these questions right away. Another woman calls. She says, "Can you get us a report on the progress of the collection of Betty Crocker coupons for the lung machine?" The man can and does. He answers the woman's question. Astonishingly, he complies with her request. The girl thinks such a talent is bleak and wonderful. She thinks this man can help her. The girl wants to be in love. Her face is thin with the thinness of a failed lover. It is so difficult. Love is concentration, she feels, but she can remember nothing. She tries to recollect 2 things a day. In the morning, with her coffee, she tries to remember, and in the evening, with her first bourbon and water, she tries to remember as well. She has been trying to remember the birth of her child now for several days. Nothing returns to her. Life is so intrusive. Everyone was talking. There was too much conversation. The doctor was above her, waiting for the pains. "No, I still can't play tennis," the doctor said. "I haven't been able to play for 2 months. I have spurs on both heels, and it's just about wrecked our marriage. Air conditioning and concrete floors is what does it. Murder on your feet." A few minutes later, the nurse had said, "Isn't it wonderful to work with Teflon? I mean, for those arterial repairs? I just love it." The girl wished that they would stop talking. She wished that they would turn the radio on instead and be still. The baby inside her was hard and glossy as an ear of corn. She wanted to say something witty or charming so that they would know she was fine and would stop talking. While she was thinking of something perfectly balanced and amusing to say, the baby was born. They fastened a plastic identification bracelet around her wrist and the baby's wrist. 3 days later, after they had come home, her husband sawed off the bracelets with a grapefruit knife. The girl had wanted to make it an occasion. She yelled, "I have a lovely pair of tiny silver scissors that belonged to my grandmother, and you have used a grapefruit knife." Her husband was flushed and nervous, but he smiled at her as he always did. "You are insecure," she said tearfully. "You are insecure because you had mumps when you were 8." Their divorce was 1 year and 2 months away. "It was not mumps," he said carefully. "Once I broke my arm while swimming is all." The girl becomes a lover to a man she met at a dinner party. He calls her up in the morning. He drives over to her apartment. He drives a white convertible which is all rusted out along the rocker panels. They do not make convertibles anymore, the girl thinks with alarm. He asks her to go sailing. They drop the child off at a nursery school on the way to the pier. She is 2 years old now, almost 3. Her hair is an odd color, almost gray. It is braided and pinned up under a big hat with mouse ears that she got on a visit to Disney World. She is wearing a striped jersey stuffed into striped shorts. She kisses the girl and she kisses the man and goes into the nursery carrying her lunch in a Wonder Bread bag. In the afternoon, when they return, the girl has difficulty recognizing the child. There are so many children, after all, standing in the rooms, all the same size, all small, quizzical creatures, holding pieces of wooden puzzles in their hands. It is late at night. A cat seems to be murdering a baby bird in a nest somewhere outside the girl's window. The girl is listening to the child's sleep. The child lies in her varnished crib, clutching a bear. The bear has no tongue. Where there should be a small piece of red felt, there is nothing. Apparently, the child had eaten it by accident. The crib sheet is in a design of tiny yellow circus animals. The girl enjoys looking at her child but cannot stand the sheet. There is so much going on in the crib, so many colors and patterns. It is so busy in there. The girl goes into the kitchen. On the counter, 4 palmetto bugs are exploring a pan of coffee cake. The girl goes back to her own bedroom and turns on the radio. There is a great deal of static. The answer man on Action Line sounds very annoyed. An old gentleman is asking something, but the transmission is terrible because the old man refuses to turn off his rock tumbler. He is polishing stones in his rock tumbler, like all old men do, and he refuses to turn it off while speaking. Finally, the answer man hangs up on him. "Good for you," the girl says. The answer man clears his throat and says in a sing-song way, "The wine of this world has caused only satiety. Our homes suffer from female sadness, embarrassment, and confusion. Absence, sterility, mourning, privation, and separation abound throughout the land." The girl puts her arms around her knees and begins to rock back and forth on the bed. The child murmurs in sleep. More palmetto bugs skate across the formica and into the cake. The girl can hear them. A woman's voice comes on the radio now. The girl is shocked. It seems to be her mother's voice. The girl leans toward the radio. There is a terrible weight on her chest. She can scarcely breathe. The voice says, I put a little pan under the air conditioner outside my window and it catches the condensation from the machine, and I use that water to water my ivy. I think anything like that makes one a better person. The girl has made love to 9 men at one time or another. It does not seem like many, but at the same time, it seems more than necessary. She does not know what to think about them. They were all very nice. She thinks it is wonderful that a woman can make love to a man. When love making, she feels she is behaving reasonably. She is well. The man often shares her bed now. He lies sleeping on his stomach, his brown arm across her breasts. Sometimes, when the child is restless, the girl brings her into bed with them. The man shifts position, turns on his back. The child lies between them. The three lie, silent and rigid, earnestly conscious. On the radio, the answer man is conducting a quiz. He says, "The answer is the time taken for the fall of the dashpot to clear the piston is 4 seconds." And what is the question? The answer is when the end of the pin is 5/16 of an inch below the face of the block. And what is the question? She and the man travel all over the South in his white convertible. The child brings dolls and sandals and sugar animals back to the child. Did I do that right? The girl brings dolls and sandals and sugar animals back to the child. Sometimes the child travels with them. She sits beside them, pretending to do something gruesome to her eyes. She pretends to dig out her eyes. The girl ignores this. The child is tanned and sturdy and affectionate, although sometimes, when she is being kissed, she goes limp and even cold, as though she has suddenly, foolishly died. In the restaurants they stop at, the child is well behaved, although she takes only butter and ice water. The girl and the man order carefully but do not eat much either. They move the food around on their plates. They take a bite now and then. In less than a month, the man has spent many hundreds of dollars on food that they do not eat. Action Line says that an adult female consumes 700 pounds of dry food in a single year. The girl believes this, of course, but it has nothing to do with her. Sometimes she greedily shares a bag of fig Newtons with the child, but she seldom eats with the man. Her stomach is hard, flat, empty. She feels hungry, always, dangerous to herself, and in love. They leave large tips on the tables of restaurants, and then they re-enter the car. The seats are hot from the sun. The child sits on the girl's lap while they travel, while the leather cools. She seems to want nothing. She makes clucking, sympathetic sounds when she sees animals smashed flat on the side of the road. When the child is not with them, they travel with the man's friends. The man has many friends whom he is devoted to. They are clever and well off, good-natured, generous people, confident in their prolonged affairs. They have known each other for years. This is discomforting to the girl who has known no one for years. The girl fears that each has loved the other at one time or another. These relationships are so complex, the girl cannot understand them. There is such flux, such constancy among them. They are so intimate and so calm. She tries to imagine their embraces. She feels that theirs differ from her own. One afternoon, just before dusk, the girl and man drive a short way into the Everglades. It is very dull. There is no scenery, no prospect. It is not a swamp at all. It is a river, only where for new mothers. Oh, damn. I'm sorry. I skipped a page. It is a river, only inches deep. Another couple rides in the back of the car. They have very dark tans and have pale yellow hair. They look almost like brother and sister. He is a lawyer, and she is a lawyer. They are drinking gin and tonics, as are the girl and the man. The girl has not met these people before. The woman leans over the back seat and drops another ice cube from the cooler into the girl's drink. She says, "I hear that you have a little daughter." The girl nods. She feels funny, a little frightened. The child is very sortable, the girl's lover says. He is driving the big car very fast and well, but there seems to be a knocking in the engine. He wears a long sleeved shirt buttoned at the wrists. His thick hair needs cutting. The girl loves to look at him. They drive, and on either side of them, across the slim canals or over the damp sawgrass, speed airboats. The sound of them is deafening. The tourists aboard wear huge earmuffs. The man turns his head toward her for a moment. I love you, she says. Ditto, he says loudly above the clatter of the airboats. Double ditto. He grins at her and she begins to giggle. Then she sobs. She has not cried for many months. Everyone is astounded. The man drives a few more miles and then pulls into a gas station. The girl feels desperate about this man. She would do the unspeakable for him, the unforgivable, anything. She is lost, but not in him. She wants herself lost and never found in him. I'll do anything for you, she cries. Take an aspirin, he says. Put your head on my shoulder. The girl is sleeping alone in her apartment. The man has gone on a business trip. He assures her he will come back. He'll always come back, he says. When the girl is alone, she measures her drink out carefully. Carefully, she drinks 12 ounces of bourbon in 2.5 hours. When she is not with the man, she resumes her habit of listening to the radio. Frequently, she hears only the replies of Action Line. Yes, the answer man says. In answer to your question, the difference between rising every morning at 6 or at 8 in the course of 40 years amounts to 29,200 hours, or 3 years, 221 days and 16 hours, which are equal to 8 hours a day for 10 years. So that rising at 6 will be the equivalent of adding 10 years to your life. The girl feels by the answer man's tone that he is a little repulsed by this. She washes her whiskey glass out in the sink. Balloons are drifting around the kitchen. They float out of the kitchen and drift onto the balcony. They float down the hall and bump against the closed door of the child's room. Some of the balloons don't float but slump in the corners of the kitchen like mounds of jelly. These are filled with water. The girl buys many balloons and is always blowing them up for the child. They play a great deal with the balloons, breaking them over the stove or smashing the water-filled ones against the walls of the bathroom. The girl turns off the radio and falls asleep. The girl touches her lover's face. She runs her fingers across the bones. Of course I love you, he says. I want us to have a life together. She is so restless. She moves her hand across his mouth. There is something she doesn't understand, something she doesn't know how to do. She makes them a drink. She asks for a piece of gum. He hands her a small crumpled stick, still in the wrapper. She is sure that it is not the real thing. The answer man has said that Lewis Carroll once invented a substitute for gum. She fears that this is that. She doesn't want this. She swallows it without chewing. Please, she says. Please what? The man replies, a bit impatiently. Her former husband calls her up. It is autumn and the child and wow. It is autumn and the heat is unusually oppressive. He wants to see the child. He wants to take her away for a week to his lakeside house in the middle of the state. The girl agrees to this. He arrives at the apartment and picks up the child and nuzzles her. He is a little heavier than before. He makes a little more money. He has a different watch, wallet, and key ring. What are you doing these days? The child's father asks. I am in love, she says. The man does not visit the girl for a week. She doesn't leave the apartment. She loses 4 pounds. She and the child make jello and they eat it for days. The girl remembers that after the baby was born, the only food the hospital gave her was jello. She thinks of all the water boiling every in hospitals everywhere for new mother's jello. The girl sits on the floor and plays endlessly with the child. The child is bored. She dresses and undresses herself. She goes through everything in her small bureau drawer and tries everything on. The girl notices a birthmark on the child's thigh. It is very small and lovely in the shape, the girl thinks, of a wine glass. A doll's wine glass, the girl thinks about the man constantly, but without exactitude. She does not even have a photograph of him. She looks through old magazines. He must resemble someone. Sometimes, late at night, when she thinks he might come to her, she feels that the answer man arrives instead. He is like a moving light, but never still. He has the high temperature and metabolism of a bird. On the action line, someone is saying, "And I live by the airport. What is this that hits my house, that showers my roof on takeoff? We can hear it. What is this? I demand to know. My lawn is healthy. My television reception is fine, but something is going on without my consent, and I am not well. My wife's had a stroke, and someone stole my stamp collection and took the orchids off my trees." The girl sips her bourbon and shakes her head. The greediness and wickedness of people, she thinks, their rudeness and lust. "Well," the answer man says, "each piece of earth is bad for something. Something is going to get it on it, and the land itself is no longer safe. It's weakening. If you dig deep enough to dip your seed, beneath the crust you'll find an emptiness like the sky. No, nothing's compatible to living in the long run. Next caller, please." The girl goes to the telephone and dials hurriedly. It is very late. She whispers, not wanting to wake the child. There is static and humming. "I can't make you out," the answer man shouts. The girl says more firmly, "I want to know my hour." "Your hour came, dear," he says. "It went when you were sleeping. It came and saw you dreaming, and it went back to where it was." The girl's lover comes to the apartment. She throws herself into his arms. He looks wonderful. She would do anything for him. The child grabs the pocket of his jacket and swings on it with her full weight. "My friend," the child says to him. "Why, yes," the man says with surprise. They drive the child to the nursery and then go out for a wonderful lunch. The girl begins to cry and spills the roll basket on the floor. "What is it?" he asks. "What's wrong?" He wearies of her, really, her moods and palpitations. The girl's face is pale. Death is not so far, she thinks. It is easily arrived at. Love is further than death. She kisses him. She cannot stop. She clings to him, trying to kiss him. "Be calm," he says. The girl no longer sees the man. She doesn't know anything about him. She is a gaunt, passive girl living alone with her child. "I love you," she says to the child. "Mommy loves me," the child murmurs, "and Daddy loves me, and Grandma loves me, and Granddaddy loves me, and my friend loves me." The girl corrects her. "Mommy loves you," she says. The child is growing. In not too long, the child will be grown. When is this happening? She wakes the child in the middle of the night. She gives her a glass of juice, and together they listen to the radio. A woman is speaking on the radio. She says, "I hope you will not think me vulgar." "Not at all," the answer man replies. "He is never at a loss," the girl whispers to the child. The woman says, "My husband can only become excited if he feels that some part of his body is missing." "Yes," the answer man says. The girl shakes the sleepy child. "Listen to this," she says. "I want you to know about these things." The unknown woman's voice continues dimly. "A finger, or an eye, or a leg. I have to pretend it's not there." "Yes," the answer man says. That was The Lover by Joy Williams from Taking Care. Very strange story by a very strange writer. I love her work so much. It's this interesting mashup where it's like there's aspects of it that I find kind of reminiscent of like Richard Brodigan. Uh Especially like in that story, there's something about it that makes me think of Brodigan. Uh but like especially when you read it aloud, you get like she's got this like really specific sense of rhythm and like musicality. It's just this. It's really something else. I I wish I knew more, like what I could say about it. I've read all of these. God, at least 4 or 5 times each by now, and I'm still really no closer to being able to figure out what she's actually doing. She's just so unusual. Yeah, I don't know. That's my profound commentary on Diane, or not Diane Williams, Joy Williams, one of the many talented Williamses. I mean, hell, we got John Williams, Joy Williams, Diane Williams. Got all of them together on my shelf over there. I'm sure there's a bunch of other Williamses that are notable. Notable Williamses. I don't know. I don't know if I want to do another one. What time is it? It's been a half hour. I wish there was a shorter one. There is, and I'm just forgetting it. Let's see. It's fairly short. Guess not. There's some real funny ones in here. There's some real heartbreaking ones too. I guess that's another commonality between Joy Williams and Richard Brodigan. I don't know if she read Richard Brodigan, and I'm not saying she's like mining the same sort of thing as Richard Brodigan. I guess in some ways she is. Like it's just kind of this like uh there's like a whimsical aspect to her writing, uh like a playfulness. They both kind of had that, and definitely that like sense of like that pretty profound sense of melancholy. Um yeah, I don't know. I never really thought about it until now. I guess there is more overlap between the two of them than I had previously thought. That's kind of interesting. I don't know. The hell do I know though? All right. Fuck it. I'll do one more. I'll do one more. We're only at a half hour. There's time. Uh, yeah. Okay. This next one and the last one I'm going to read tonight, also from Taking Care by Joy Williams. Um, this one is called Preparation for a Collie. You know, like the type of dog, like Lassie, you know. Preparation for a Collie. There is Jane, and there is Jackson, and there is David. There is the dog. David is burying a bird. He has a carton in which cans of garbanzos were once packed. It is a large carton, much too large for the baby bird. David is digging a hole beneath the bedroom window. He mutters and cries a little. He is spending Sunday morning doing this. He is 5. Jackson comes outside and says, "It's too bad you didn't find a dead swan. It would have fit better in that hole." Jackson is going to be an architect. He goes to school all day and he works as a bartender at night. He sees Jane and David on weekends. He is too tired in the morning to have breakfast with them. Jane leaves before 9. She sells imported ornaments in a Christmas shop, and Jackson is gone by the time Jane returns in the afternoon. David is in kindergarten all day. Jackson tends bar until long after midnight. Sometimes he steals a bottle of blended whiskey and brings it home with him. He wears saddle shoes and a wedding ring. His clothes are poor, but he has well-shaped hands and nails. Jane is usually asleep when Jackson gets in bed beside her. He goes at her without turning on the light. "I don't want to wake you up," he says. Jackson is from Virginia. Once, a photograph of him in period dress appeared in The New Yorker for a Visit Williamsburg advertisement. They have saved the magazine. It is in their bookcase with their books. Jackson packs his hair down hard with water when he leaves the house. The house is always a mess. It is not swept. There are crumbs and broken toys beneath all the furniture. There are cereal bowls everywhere, crusty with soured milk. There is hair everywhere. The dog sheds. It is a collie, 3 years older than David. It is Jane's dog. She brought it with her into this marriage, along with her Mexican bowls and something blue. Jane could be pretty, but she doesn't know how to arrange her hair. She has violet eyes, and she prefers that color. She has 3 pots of violets in the living room on Jackson's old chess table. They flourish. This is sometimes mentioned by Jackson. Nothing else flourishes as well here. Whenever Jackson becomes really angry with Jane, he takes off his glasses and breaks them in front of her. They seem always to be the most valuable thing at hand, and they are replaceable, although the act causes considerable inconvenience. Jane and David eat supper together every night. Jane eats like a child. Jane is closest to David in this. They are children together, eating junk. Jane has never prepared a meal in this house. She is as though in a seasonal hotel. This is not her life. She does not have to be this. She refuses to become familiar with this house, with this town. She is a guest here. She has no memories. She is waiting. She does not have to make anything of these moments. She is a stranger here. She is waiting for Jackson to become an architect. His theories of building are realistic, but his quest is oniric, he tells her. He sometimes talks about sights. They are getting rid of the dog. Jackson has been putting ads in the paper. He is enjoying this. He has been advertising for weeks. The dog is free, and many people call. Jackson refuses all callers. For 3 weekends now, he and Jane have talked about nothing except the dog. They will simplify their life, and they cannot stop thinking about it. This dog, this act, this choice that lies before them. The dog has crammed itself behind the pipes beneath the kitchen sink. David squats before him, blowing gently on his nose. The dog thumps its tail on the linoleum. "We're getting rid of you, you know," David says. It is Saturday evening, and someone has stopped at the house to see the dog. "Is he a full-blooded collie?" the person asks. "Does he have papers?" "He doesn't say," Jackson smiles. After all these years, 6, Jane is a little confused by Jackson. She sees this as her love for him. What would her love for him be if it were not this? In turn, she worries about her love for David. Jane does not think David is nice looking. He has many worries, it seems. He weeps, he has rashes, he throws up, he has pale hair, pale flesh. She does not know how she can go through all these days, each day, embarrassed for her son. Jane and Jackson lie in bed. I love Sundays, Jane says. Jackson wears a t shirt. Jane slips her hand beneath it and strokes his chest. She is waiting. She sometimes fears that she is waiting for the she sometimes fears that she is waiting for the waiting to end. Fears that she seeks and requires only that recognition and none other. Jackson holds her without opening his eyes. It is Sunday. Jane pours milk into a pancake mix. Something gummy is stuck in David's hair. Jane gets a pair of scissors and cuts it out. Jackson says, David, I want you to stop crying so much, and I want you to stop pretending to bake in Mommy's cupcake tins. Jackson is angry, but then he laughs. After a moment, David laughs too. That afternoon, a woman and a little girl come to the house about the dog. I told you on the phone I'd give you some fresh eggs for him, the woman says, thrusting a child's sand bucket at Jane. Even if you decide not to give the dog to us, the eggs, of course, are still yours. She pauses at Jane's hesitation. Adams, the woman says, we're here for the ad. Jackson waves her to a chair and says, Mrs. Adams, we seek no personal aggrandizement from our pet. Our only desire is that he be given a good home. A great many people have contacted us, and now we must make a difficult decision. Where will he inspire the most contentment? And where will he find canine fulfillment? Jane brings the dog into the room. There he is, Dorothy, Mrs. Adams exclaims to the little girl. Go over and pet him or something. It's a nice dog, Dorothy says. I like him fine. She needs a dog, Mrs. Adams says. Coming over here, she said. Mother, we could bring him home today in the back of the car. I could play with him tonight. Oh, she sure would like to have this dog. She lost her dog last week. A tragedy, kicked to death by one of the horses. Must have broken every bone in his fluffy little body. What a pity, Jackson exclaims. And then there was the accident, Mrs. Adams goes on. Show them your arm, Dorothy. Why, I tell you, it almost came right off, didn't it, darling? The girl rolls up the sleeve of her shirt. Her arm is a mess, complexly rearranged, a yellow matted wrinkle of scar tissue. Actually, Jackson says, I'm afraid my wife has promised the dog to someone else. After they leave, Jackson says, these farm people have the souls of animals themselves. The dog walks slowly back to the kitchen, swinging its high, foolish hips. David wanders back to the breakfast table and picks up something, some piece of food. He chews it for a moment and then spits it out. He kneels down and spits it into the hot air register. David, Jane says. She looks at his face. It is calm and round, a child's face. It is evening. On television, a man dressed as a chef, holding 6 pies, falls down a flight of stairs. The incident is teaching numbers. 6, the screen screams. 6, David says. Jane and Jackson are drinking whiskey and apple juice. Jane is wondering what they did for David's last birthday when he was 5. Did they have a little party? What did we do on your last birthday, David? Jane asks. We gave him pudding and tea, Jackson says. That's not true, Jane says, worried. She looks at David's face. 6 talking clocks, the television sings. 6, David says. Jane's drink is gone. May I have another drink? She asks politely, and then gets up to make it for herself. She knocks the ice cubes out of the tray and smashes them up with a wooden spoon. On the side of the icebox, held in place by magnets, is a fragment from a poem, torn from a book. It says, The dead must fall silent when one sits down to a meal. She wonders why she put it there. Perhaps it was to help her diet. Jane returns to the couch, and David sits beside her. He says, "You say no, and I say yes." "No," Jane says. "Yes," David yells, delighted. "No." "Yes." "No." "Yes." "Yes." David stops, confused. Then he giggles. They play this game all the time. Jane is willing to play it with him. It is easy enough to play. Jackson and Jane send David to a fine kindergarten and are always buying him chalk and crayons. Nevertheless, Jane feels unsure with David. It is hard to know how to act when one is with the child, alone. The dog sits by a dented aluminum dish in the bright kitchen. Jackson is opening a can of dog food. "Jesus," he says, "what a sad, stupid dog." The dog eats its food stolidly, gagging a little. The fur beneath its tail hangs in dirty beards. "Jesus," Jackson says. Jane goes to the cupboard, wobbling slightly. "I'm going to kill that dog," she says. "I'm sick of this." She puts down her drink and takes a can of Drano out of the cupboard. She takes a pound of hamburger, which is thawing in a bowl, and rubs off the soft pieces onto a plate. She pours Drano over it and mixes it in. "It is my dog," Jane says, "and I'm going to get rid of him for you." David starts to cry. "Why don't you have another drink?" Jackson says to Jane. "You're so vivacious when you drink." David is sobbing. His hands flap in the air. Jackson picks him up. "Stop it," he says. David wraps his legs around his father's chest and pees all over him. Their clothing turns dark, as though together they'd been shot. "God damn it," Jackson shouts. He throws his arms out. He stops holding the child, but his son clings to him, then drops to the floor. Jane grabs Jackson's shoulder. She whispers in his ear, something so crude, in a tone so unfamiliar that it can only belong to all the time before them. Jackson does not react to it. He says nothing. He unbuttons his shirt. He takes it off and throws it in the sink. Jane has thrown the dog food there. The shirt floats down to it from his open fist. Jane kneels and kisses her soiled son. David does not look at her. It is as though, however, he is dreaming of looking at her. That was Preparation for a Collie by Joy Williams from the collection Taking Care. Great collection. If you like short fiction, highly recommend it. Yeah. That's about all I have for y'all tonight. I just wanted to read a couple Joy Williams stories. I reread that collection a few months ago. Loved it. I reread another collection of hers that it had been a while since I last read, called Honored Guest. It's great too. I don't know. Joy Williams rules. Y'all should check her out if she's not already on your bookshelf. She should be. She wrote novels too, which I said at the beginning of this. She's still alive. She's still writing novels. I haven't read any of her novels, so I've only read her short fiction. But 2025 is almost here, so maybe it's time I remedied that. Anyway, thank you all for spending a little bit of your Friday night here with me, listening to weird short fiction that I love very much. This will be uploaded for posterity. Feel free to watch it at your leisure. Turn off the image and just listen to it. It's better that way. Leave a comment if you like it. If you have something you want to hear read on here, I have quite extensive bookshelves. I might be able to accommodate that. Anyway, if not beforehand, I'll see you all hopefully the same time next week, and we'll talk soon. Have a good weekend. Bye-bye. There it is.